Hello, you're listening to Thursday Lunch. Actually, now watching Thursday Lunch. Also, the show about the mechanisms and magic of creating great brands. I'm Dan Howell.
And I'm Stephanie Robbins. And we're talking about leadership versus management today. And, Dan, it was really fun as we were starting to talk about this subject. I had a completely different view of what leadership versus management was until you and I started talking about it. And it
Hmm.
really opened my eyes. And I loved the perspective you brought into the conversation, creating sort of a hierarchy in function and thought. And I thought that might be a
Hmm.
really great place for us to start today.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, leadership and management, you know, as I see it, and this kind of all works into the four C's framework anyway. It's a it's a fluid dynamic. It's like, somebody's not just a leader or just a manager or just a contributor. Uh, you're all those things all the time. Um, and how do you know which one to be? And how do you know what's right? Uh, well, some people are just intuitively, naturally good at it. That wasn't me. So I had to think about it. And the four C's, the thinking about the constraints of the situation helped me understand it and then helped me realize, or at least come to the belief that like a manager can be a leader can be a manager, and or somebody with the title of leader or the title of manager, because these are separate. There's the action, and then
Yeah,
there's the title. Um, uh, could be both those things, none of those things. It all depends on how they got the title, right?
I love that thinking because my initial perspective had always been based in the idea that managers were people who constrained, managed, um, who would, um, we'd say micromanager, that's the one who comes and digs into every single tiny little detail.
Right.
But then there's other, and this again is not around about title, but around function of manager, where you are literally managing other people versus a leader who I've always thought of as somebody who helps other people engage with their work in a way that they can then lead them down the path. And so that brings the best out of people.
Hmm.
But to your point, the idea that somebody might be an individual contributor and then they move into a management role that still has a level of tactical requirement. And so it really, while they certainly can use tools to help people engage with their work. They're still leading. I mean, they're
Yeah.
still managing. And then you move into leader, and you brought up a great point in our discussion of you see that functionally in the way titles progress,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, yeah. You go from, doer, you know,
Yeah.
to like team lead or something, and then to maybe manager, which is like, oh, you're now in charge of people, and
Yeah.
then and then you go to director, right?
Right.
And directing is telling people what to,
Yeah.
go a direction,
It's sharing a
not
vision.
is
Yeah.
sharing a vision,
Yeah.
right? And then, yeah, depending on, the org, it could be your head of, right? Uh, and as you move up and certainly in bigger organizations, your ability to focus on like minutia, on the ground is diminished. But even in when you're there, like as a director, there are things that you are the individual contributor on that you're doing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the president of a company, but I still am doing a lot of tactical work as well.
Hmm.
Now, that also has to do with the size of the company.
Right.
Uh, so, but in the process, there's roles where I've got a vision, and so my team all knows my vision. They've
Hmm.
contributed to it, they've bought into it, we're all moving in the same direction.
Right.
And for me, that's leadership. or a big part
Mhm.
of leader. I mean, there's a lot more to leadership than just that, but a big part of that, we skip the management side. One of
Mhm.
the things that's interesting is because now again, I'm in a really small organization, but in the world of remote work, that becomes fascinating. So my whole, and we're all remote. We've not been in the same
Yep.
room at the same time. And so I can check in on milestones and projects and that kind of stuff, but I can't walk over to someone's desk and just,
Right.
look over them and
Yeah. And in my experience, like, I've been in huge orgs. I've been in, you know, just me, and everything in between. And I find that I'm not like I could be. At times have been told I'm a good leader. I've been told that I'm a good manager. I've been told that I'm a horrible manager. I've been told I'm a micromanager. I've been told that that I don't manage enough. Right? Yeah.
but you have a great story, I think, of moving from manager to leader that we talked
Oh,
about.
oh yeah. No, the one of the things that and we did talk about this before, but I do believe is critical, um, in a shift in thought was that uh, I started as I was a developer and I love doing development work. I love solving the little problems. I like working on the bench. Um, but as I moved up and I got this early on in my career, a friend who is a great manager and leader ended up a CEO of big organizations, right? This was before he had gotten there, but he had mentioned to me, he said, you should figure out how to help other people do what you do versus being the one who does it. And at the time, I wasn't good enough at what I did to understand that and be able to do it. And I said that. I'm like, I'm not even sure how I would do that. But then it became a mental goal and I did. And then it became a manager and then director. And it was when we were together, working together, that I realized that not I needed to not make decisions. I needed to let other people make decisions. Um, and it had nothing to do with the outcomes or anything else. It was about allowing people to make those decisions and make the mistakes and learn and grow, right? So that they eventually could do what I did, which was figure out how to how to bridge that, how to get over that next gap, how to bridge that next career path move or whatever, uh, and you can't do that if you aren't given the chance,
Right,
right? And so if we're
right,
not giving uh, our people or the people we work with the chance to make decisions, the chance to think through the problems. If we're just telling them what to do,
yeah.
we're not really a good leader nor a good manager.
And I think the key in that is both for being a leader is both letting go of the mistakes and allowing them to make mistakes
Yes. Oh
and
yeah.
letting and sharing the vision so they're going in the right direction. And that to me, it's that mistake section that changes when you go from being a manager to being a leader.
When I think of the great leaders and great managers and great people that I've worked with,
Yeah,
um, they didn't care. Well, they cared about mistakes. They cared about
sure.
outcomes that didn't work out, right? But they didn't focus on it.
Right,
Like they focused on how to get better. They focused on
right,
what, great, what happened? What did we miss? What could we do better?
right,
But again, we talked about this in the, when we were talking about holding people accountable versus creating accountability,
right.
right? Um, and those people, those are the ones I want to emulate. Those are the ones that I want to work with. Um,
Right.
but I also see like there are I can imagine like the I'm working in, we both work in very hard to define areas, R&D and marketing both, have that, you know, half of what we do is worthwhile. Wish we knew which half.
Right. Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, uh, sort of thing. And so, but when you're, a good operations leader or manager is much more specific and constrained, you know,
Yeah. Well,
different
and
constraints.
that's where for me a lot of the mind shift came from, right?
Yeah.
Was recognizing that when you're in a really tactical position, when you really have a very specific goal, a very specific time frame, and especially if there's the level of urgency is high, that moving down the ladder a little from leader to manager might actually be
Yeah.
helpful and
Yeah.
useful for the team. So I'm always such a fiercely independent, don't tell me what to do kind of person that's why for me manager never made sense and equated for me, but seeing it in that and also recognizing the different types of personalities and how other people learn, suddenly being able to put those tighter constraints on, being able to put um, that view of things in a more managerial structure rather than
Hmm.
more open-ended leadership structure is helpful, especially for more junior people who are getting their footing, who may not understand how an organization works.
Hmm.
Um, that's a really, I had I've had many good bosses, like anyone, and many bad bosses. And I'm thinking like, I've worked in a lot of remote environments and
Uh-huh.
even long before COVID and the work from home boom. Um, and one of the things I realized is that the ones who were the most effective had a combination of both leader and manager. So they had that leadership where not only did they have the side of leadership where they had a vision and you understood it and so you knew what direction you were marching in. They
Hmm.
also had that sense of leadership that you respected them.
Yeah.
You wanted to do well for them because they um, they were somebody that you really looked up to and you could respect, that you appreciated when you got to be in the room with them, especially when you work
Hmm.
remote, you're not always in the room with them, or even when you work in the same office with them and they want to have a meeting with you, that was always something that you could look forward to
Yeah.
because they're a leader. They're somebody exciting to, and by exciting, I don't mean you have to be, some big charismatic personality. They're just simply someone that you can respect, somebody that can give you a vision, somebody that can take you in a direction.
Right.
And then the manager side of that being, okay, now we're all marching in the same direction, but what are the milestones and when are we going to get there and how are we going to get there? But even in that management, they would still back off from the micromanagement. So, I had my milestones to reach, but I had the space to make my own mistakes and gain my own learning as
Yeah.
long as I was still getting to the milestones and ideally meeting or exceeding the goal. Since I'm in marketing, we always have a goal.
Hmm.
Maybe it's social media and we want to obtain, 5,000 followers.
Right.
Well, as long as I meet that, but there's always the opportunity to exceed that. Um, maybe we got to 10,000 followers. So, being able to find ways to continue to grow, but that contributes to that leadership that you just so deeply appreciate,
Yes.
because
Mm.
they do respect you. The respect has to go both ways. I guess
It
for
does.
me, I always thought of a manager as not having that respect go both ways. It was somebody who was like, there's you see it on TV a lot and in media a lot. There's the guy sitting at the desk with the huge inbox, and the manager comes in and slaps more stuff in the inbox and
Right.
doesn't have any. sense of responsibility for the workload that this person has or their ability to climb out from under it, right?
Yeah, and I think that uh it's funny you say you don't like managers. But when I think of one of the things that you bring to our relationship and when we work together is that you are an excellent manager. Like you
Oh, thanks.
manage things well. Like you check in, you make sure, and no one feels managed. Like you're a great leader, great, and these other things, but like I do better. Like if there's a clear direction and some level of management. I don't like a lot of management, right? Because
Yeah.
my thought process is fluid, and if you check in with me too many times, you'll get confused, right? I'm not confused. It's just that you ask me a question, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking at the moment, right? But that doesn't mean that that's a decision I've made. It just means that, that's
Right.
what happened to be floating by on the stream, right?
Right. Right.
In the moment of the conversation. And so you were always very good, and we talked about this with the poor man PLM. Poor man PLM, great management, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think part of this is like you were talking about, like, okay, in media and on, if we're talking about like thing posts on LinkedIn, makes it seem like manager or management is bad. And it's like, no, managers and management aren't bad. And in fact, managers and management are really important in at the right time, at the right constraint, right?
Right.
You know, uh,
Yeah.
because
It, it's
that's what part of that's like the communication and consensus process is all about what you're going to manage to some degree, right?
and who,
And who,
because
right?
I
Yeah.
think, we've talked about this. We talked about this when we talked about doing your personal SWOT, and that
Hmm.
was, know your strengths and lean into your strengths and know your weaknesses and find
Right.
people. And I think so who you're managing as well, and like being able to manage in a way that allows people to thrive.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, I'm fiercely independent. I do not like being told what to do. I love being able to buy into a vision and
Hmm.
then I have no problem with what are the milestones and how do we want to get there. But I'm gonna define, that road. So I work well with that type of leader. And
Right.
you and I work really well together because we do have complementary skills. So
Yeah.
I am good at keeping us really organized. Like, okay, here's our timing, here's where what we need to do. And you're really good at being prepared. Like, okay, we're going to meet at this time. You will be
Right.
prepared for that meeting. Um,
And- yeah.
I don't have to remind you. I don't have to, what I think of as management. I don't feel like I manage you. I just like, cool. I want to have it on my calendar. I don't have to manage it. You're like, cool. We're going to talk about this at that time. I will be prepared at that time.
But you
And
do like you manage this whole thing, like quite honestly, you because you will, you make them notes, you make it so that like, hey, we know what we're doing. um and that's where, like, I think, if we talk about leader versus good manager, like we talk about truly successful doer,
yeah,
lead manager, leader, this spectrum.
yeah.
Now it's like, oh, well, what's the difference? The person doesn't show up differently. The constraints changed.
You
Right.
know,
What
I
what do you need? Who are you? What do you need to do? What are you
yeah,
responsible for? Now it's like, oh, if I'm showing up to work and I'm new, or whatever, or I'm an individual solo entrepreneur or whatever, like I do everything, right?
yeah.
Um, the bigger the organization, the more that gets fractured, and the more you have to kind of look at where am I? What am I doing? Like in this moment, and am I the manager now? Am I the doer? Am I the leader? And that's where, like, understanding the constraints of the situation, understanding your business constraints, and then having good communication and consensus process, to
Yeah.
collaboration, like where all that stuff really plays out. And it's like, oh, when I'm a leader, but I'm the same person.
Right.
The difference is that now I need to lead. Now, the constraint is I'm in charge, or the constraint is that we don't know what we're doing, and sometimes everybody's equal or not, and you have to step in and be like, well, here's a vision, right? That's
Yeah.
leadership, right?
I love that idea of using the four C's because who you manage and how you manage, you can't always pick who's on your team
No, you can't.
in like, okay, the best person for that job may not be someone whose style meets your style. And so going through the four C's
Hmm.
allows for more of a structured framework that alleviates, I mean, it doesn't turn us into automatrons, but it alleviates some of that personal ebb and flow in a way that helps you see people better. So if we go through our constraints,
Hmm.
that for me has always been a great way. And we talked about it last time when we were, or the time before when we were talking about how you turned that meeting around.
Yeah.
When you go through the constraints, that starts to build a foundation of course, my favorite C, communication
Hmm.
that begins to build the trust. So whether you're a leader who I'm a very hands-off leader, I'm a very like, here's where we want to go, here's how we want to get there. You have this tools to get there. Come to me if you have an issue, otherwise, goodbye.
Right.
Um, but if you're someone who needs more support, that communication and collaboration, that's going to come out in that process without you even needing to know that you need that support. It's going to come out in that collaboration process.
Right.
And then we walk away with our consensus. And that to me is how, I mean, it actually makes me think we even need to move away from the concept of manager and leader because it's much more about if you've got your four C's framework to be helping that build that communication and process with your team, it's no longer about whether you're a leader or manager. It's really about building with your team how you're going to get to wherever it is you need to go.
Right. And like military leadership, police leadership, uh, top-down leadership is absolutely required in some situations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And bottom-up leadership, like it was somebody, I don't even remember who now, was talking about this in terms of leadership and the leader, how you lead at a school, because like you, schools are not top down. School,
No.
like every
Only
teacher.
bad ones are.
Well, no, not even like they can't. Every teacher is their own little, fiefdom, their own little city state,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like because they shut that door and they're
Yep.
alone with those kids, and that that's not, you can't tell uh teachers to stand on the line and wait for instruction. That's not who
Yeah.
those people are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like somebody in the military, you can, because that's the expectation, and that's
Because
that's who they are. That's what they, right?
but that's
And
also what each looked like that's what each of them signed up for, right? You
it
signed up to
is
be in the military. You signed up to go in and and participate in that very hierarchical chain of command. But
right,
you signed up to be a teacher. You came in to teach kids. You didn't come in to have an administrator. I mean, you're gonna, but you didn't come in to have an administrator come and tell you the what's what
right,
for. And
yeah,
so, and that's why I was saying bad schools, because there are schools having so many teachers in my universe. There are schools where you have these administrators, these principals that come in or administrators that try
the try,
to, yeah, they're
but they
not
don't.
successful and they rarely last long.
Right, because they don't actually have the actual the structural authority to do
Right.
like to demand to make demands, right?
Right.
And also that a teacher is going to have is a long-term relationship with a whole with a group of people that you're trying to optimize the outcome for each child in the classroom,
Right.
where in the military you are really focused on cohesion of the group to make things happen, right? So your leadership, like the leadership fundamentals are the same, but all the actions are different.
Right.
Different
Right.
because they're very different constraints. They're
Right.
very,
Right. Yeah. And I love that. And the communication is going to be different based on that too, right? I mean,
yeah,
a good administrator in a school is going to be with collaborating with teachers and other staff. Whereas a good communicator in the military, the collaboration is buy-in,
yes.
right? It's buy-in and consensus. So you still have the four C's, but
Hmm.
it's a communication that this is where we're going. And the
Right.
collaboration is that recognition that, okay, this is where we're going.
Right. And so, and now if we take all that like thought process and we bring it back to our CPG world and business, it's
Or
like,
business world. I
yeah,
think it doesn't even need to be CPG. You
yeah,
know, in
yeah.
every business, you've got a mission and a vision. I used to
Well, you
belong,
should. You hope you
well,
do.
you should. I used to belong to a management group and they would separate out mission and vision really beautifully. And mission was very much described like a military mission, right? So if the vision is we're going to go to this area and stabilize it,
Hmm.
the mission is going to be the tactical. One of our processes of stabilizing it is we're going to be bringing clean water to this village, right? Just
Yeah.
an example. Um, and so even with that more open-ended, you know, uh, touchy-feely, okay, we're all going to work together, work situation, the reality is a lot of this does come from that military mindset. I mean, you still have to have a mission that
Right.
allows everyone to build their vision, to build their tactics, to move things forward. It
Right.
still is going to be um, there is uh, there's still going to be a level of top down as completely open as I am to like, don't tell me what to do. And I don't really generally tell other people what to do, even on my team, again, I give them the vision, I make sure they have the tools and I send them on their way. And I'm here if you have a problem. Generally, they're going to
Right.
come to me with a solution to the problem, not just the problem. But if they can't, I'm here to help with the solution. Like we're in this together, right? But
Hmm.
even with that said, I've volunteered at co-ops in my life, and the lack of hierarchical structure just made me want to kill people. Like it just was not working for me. So there is
Right.
a level of hierarchy that I think is really, really necessary. And I just, even with that more, hey, we're all in this together, let's all go in this direction. I still very much believe in the hierarchy of command, the hierarchy of, you know, the buck
Right.
stops with me. If I'm in an organization and I'm the head of marketing and my marketing missed and I didn't really have anything to do with it, my team did, that's still on me because that was
Mhm.
me allowing my team to get to the wrong conclusion or the wrong place or the wrong thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all. I think, I think you said this earlier. I don't know whether it was on tape or not, but the this idea, the click, you're looking for the click online. You're looking for the and uh, uh, and so it oversimplifies things and it makes manager bad, leader good,
Right.
right?
Right. Yes. The
But
just the headline. Yes. The headline in social media that is
and
very binary when this is
Yeah,
not a binary
it
subject.
makes things black and white, and it's like no, they're really not, right?
Hmm.
And leading when you should be managing or managing when you should be leading are equally bad, right?
Hmm.
I can be a great leader, but if I'm leading people in a direction that is contrary to the consensus that we have come up with. Like if
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going this way to my team and but the agreement was no, we're gonna, I start working on beverages when we're a dip company, like, hey, visionary leader, great, doing awesome
Right.
work. I could make the best beverage in the world. My team could be, doing awesome, but we're also horrible because I'm not
Well,
managing, I'm not doing the
yes.
job.
And it would mean you completely miss the constraints of the company,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, we've talked about this, just reminds me of very early on in Thursday Lunch, you and I talked about, so McDonald's, it may be a lesser quality product than, say, In and Out or Five Guys or whatever your
Hmm.
more higher end burger
Right,
place is. But if you wanted a McDonald's burger and they handed you a Five Guys or an In and Out, you're gonna be disappointed because the
right,
expectation is off.
right.
And
Yeah,
all
if I'm
of
not
that,
meeting, yeah,
yeah, yeah, you're not meeting expected. And all of that goes back to your favorite constraint, understanding the constraints.
yeah,
We are not a beverage company. Why are you making a beverage?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, and again, the same thing is if I'm leading when I should be managing, that's bad. And if I'm managing, if I'm telling people what to do when I should be leading and telling them what we should be doing,
Right.
like, that's when you get accused of like, hey, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're doing work, you're doing things, but you're not doing what's important, you know, you,
Yeah.
because either you don't know it, which would make you a bad manager and a bad leader,
Yeah.
or you do know it and you're not doing it for whatever reason. When then you're just
I I worked for a really great leader once who, when they first started, they were hired on after me, just shortly after me. When they were first hired, I was working on a promotional project. And while I was the head of the department, there was only one other person in my department. So I tended to do both the visionary, how we're going to get where we're going, along with the majority of the tactical, here's how we're going to execute on that as well. And one day they came over to my desk to just check in with me and they were going to head out. And anyway, I was so excited for what I was working on that I really, he was coming. I was like, hey, you want to see what I'm working on? And he looked at me and he said, no, I trust you, and walked away. And on the one hand, I really wanted to share what I was working on. On the other
uh-huh,
hand, that level of leadership, because this was a project he and I had talked about. We had talked about where we were going, what the goal was to get there. And this was just one of the pieces that was going to get us there. And his statement of trust, his statement of, I don't need to check your work. I don't need to do that, for me was huge and really defines that leader versus manager. He was a leader. He gave me the
right,
vision. We talked about it. We went over it. He confirmed I understood. So we, of course, in the process, went through what the constraints of the project were. We communicated about it. We collaborated on what this would look like. I was able to tell him what I could and couldn't do with the resources I had. And that gave us our consensus. Now we knew what the project was. And I could go back to my desk and my person on my team and really put the project plan together in a way that meant I didn't need to check in with him. I knew
right,
exactly, I'm going to check in with him in 3 weeks. Unless something goes off the rails, I'm going to check with him in 3 weeks because we're going to be ready for launching this thing.
right,
And so him coming by and on the one hand, not looking, because I was so excited, you work on these, it was graphic thing, you want to show the graphics.
yep,
But really, on the other hand, the statement he was making was really very powerful in that world of leadership. Look, I'm not going to waste anyone's time, your time or my time. You and I have already discussed what this project is, how you're getting there. If I didn't trust you to get there, why do I have you in this role?
right,
Right? And that was it. And I by the way, the execution went off flawlessly.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like, and hopefully at the end, because I've had those things, and then at the end, my leader said, "Great, this is wonderful," and then uh, other hands-off leaders where at the end they're like, "Well, why'd you do that?" And it's like,
Yeah.
well, uh,
Yeah.
but um, I while this was all going on, uh, I was reminded there is only one thing
Yeah.
that all leaders have in common:
What's that?
followers.
Yeah. That's
That's
right.
it. That's it,
That's right.
right? And
Yep.
and
Yep.
so that, which was something somebody said to me years ago, uh, and it's kind of stuck with me, and it's like, yeah, like I've had leaders who they were technically good leaders. We followed, right? For
Yep.
reasons like, were they nice people? Were they good people? No, but they were very clear in their vision, and they incentivized people to help execute it
Yep.
appropriately, and it worked, right?
Whereas a
I
manager doesn't
don't want
need
to have dinner with
followers.
them,
Right.
but they were a great leader for
Right.
me,
Right.
right? You know,
But a manager doesn't need followers, doesn't have necessarily have followers because they're just managing things.
right? Yeah.
I love
So
that. And I'm thinking with that,
I think
what are your takeaways for today?
I think my takeaways is that when to lead and when to manage, uh, as you're going through your career, is a challenge for everyone to understand, right? And no, I know it was a challenge for me. It's been a challenge for everyone I've talked to. And that I think that looking at things and going and asking yourself, what are the constraints here? Like, what has been communicated? What has been agreed to? Uh, what's gotten done? Right? Will
Yeah,
help you answer that question. Um, and uh, uh, if you're not aware of that, you're going to have problems. So when something comes up, when there's a challenge, uh, the first question to ask is, "Hey, ask what changed, what
right,
happened."
right.
Get the information and then make a decision. It's like, okay, is this leadership? Is this a leading moment? Like, oh, you didn't know what direction you were going, or is this a management moment? Like, oh, we should have had check-ins or whatever. Like, um, and that it is very fluid and individual, but that you know a thoughtful approach that along those lines has helped me be more effective as both a leader and a manager, um,
I
and
love
an
that.
individual contributor. So
Yeah, I like
that's my
that.
takeaway.
I like that. I think for me, kind of what we started with, that leadership and management is more of a spectrum than a black and white or binary.
Yep.
And the thing that I really take away in that is how the four C's framework can help as a tool for leading and or managing a team, a project, a group in all the ways we've talked about in so many episodes in that whole fractal big to small
Yep.
perspective. Because when you've got people on your team that maybe you guys don't have the same style, having that framework for communicating and building collaboration and all of that is going to alleviate those tensions. And
Yeah.
that was kind of an eye opener in our conversation for me, that I think is a really good takeaway. Well, you've been listening to Thursday Lunch, the show about the mechanisms and magic for creating great brands. I'm Stephanie Robbins.
And I'm Dan Howell. If you like this episode, please tell your friends and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And we would love for you to join the conversation. Email us at join us at thursdaylunch.net. And you can find past episodes and more information about the four C's at thursdaylunch.net, or on LinkedIn at the Thursday Lunch page.
And now you can find Thursday Lunch on YouTube if you want to see us talking. And of course, we are still on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon Music, anywhere else you find podcasts. Uh, this episode was produced by Stephanie Robbins and me, Dan Howell, with special thanks to Jen Howell for her amazing support. All stories are true, as remembered and affirmed by me and Stephanie. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved.